Movies on video cassette.
Welcome to Strange Glow Video.
Guys, I'm eating junk and watching rubbish.
We're oozing with VHS, horror, nostalgia, and more.
New Better Block Glow in the Dark.
After it runs some videotape, you can get a glow-in-the-dark hand rubbing from the movie Casper.
And now, your hosts, Alec, Justin, and Nick.
Hey, you're not allowed to rent here anymore. Yeah!
Hey, welcome back to Strange Glow Video. My name is Justin. With me is my esteemed colleague, co-host extraordinaire, Alec. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Drinking a Coca-Cola. I recently picked up a 12-pack, and all of the colas had Colossus on them.
Oh, I thought they were done with that promotion. Where'd you get those at?
Well, I Dollar General. But the thing is, what was weird about it is there wasn't any indication that it was X-Men cans on the outside of the box. It was just regular box.
Oh.
And on the Jenna Ortega Fanta box, regular cans on the inside. The soda world's weird right now, apparently.
Sounds like it. So, tonight we're going to talk about Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. I saw this Friday night at the drive-in. You saw it Thursday afternoon, like the earliest showing they had.
Yes, I did. 3 o'clock. So I was
Nice.
able to get the handbook of the recently deceased popcorn bucket from AMC.
How'd that turn out? I haven't seen one of those yet. I've seen plenty of the sandworm popcorn buckets, but
This was the one I wanted for obvious reasons.
yeah.
And it's just regular ass tin.
Nice.
So kind of like cool because you could use it for something if you wanted to.
Yeah.
It's just got AMC and Beetlejuice down there, but pretty handy. It's just the metal tin, a little sturdy.
Yeah, that's a nice collection piece, right? It's
No, I
funny that
really
they're-
like that.
They're calling these popcorn buckets. It's like, I get that you can put popcorn in them, like no one's going to. So
Well, they call that a popcorn tin, this one.
yeah.
But like,
We're all just collecting that because it's like in line with what we have. So
well, it came with, I don't know if you saw my post on social media. I have a Beetlejuice large popcorn bucket because it's black and white stripes and it has Michael Keaton on it. So I kept the large popcorn bucket too because
yeah.
it's cool.
The one thing I'm surprised you don't have sitting around in your house, and it's probably because you're a vegetarian, is like old KFC buckets. Like some vintage KFC buckets to go around,
Yeah, I could.
Something you'd see on an 80s TV show.
For sure. That's funny. I'm doing a bunch of Lost content on my channel this month, and so I was looking into getting some props from the show, from the Dharma Initiative, which you won't get this necessarily, but there's like a science initiative that is on this island in the 70s, and they were doing weird studies on the electromagnetic properties and all the weird stuff that happens on the island. And they sent food to the island, and it's all labeled like Dharma Initiative cereal, breakfast cereal, or peanut butter, beer. But it's just a white label with black text.
Okay.
So I want to get some of that stuff with the Dharma logo. And I was looking at a Lost DVD set. There's 6 seasons of the show, but the season 5 box set that came out that had seasons 1 through 5 also came with it came packaged as a Dharma Initiative like welcoming kit.
Oh, okay.
So it actually has a VHS tape in it that has an orientation VHS. And you actually see some of the orientation tapes in the show, so that's why that's really cool.
Nice. Okay. That's classic.
Need to pick one of those up.
Yeah, Lost is a show that I never did watch, but heard lots of people that love it, and just like the first few episodes just didn't sink me in. So it's one of those things I probably need to give another chance to, and just get past those first 4 or 5 episodes and go from there. I don't know.
Yeah. It's you got to stick around for that show for sure. It's easily in my top 5. Like if we're excluding comedy and we're just like doing dramas or whatever, TV dramas,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably second to Twin Peaks. X-Files is probably number 3.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Second to Twin Peaks. That's a pretty bold statement for you, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fascinating.
Absolutely.
All right. You want to talk some Beetlejuice? So last week we covered the original. Last week we talked about the original one, which I don't think there's much you could say about it that's not positive or pleasant, right? That's a pretty stellar flick, start to finish.
Yeah.
This movie, what were your thoughts and reactions and everything after viewing number 1?
This is my reaction.
Mind blown?
I don't know if I'd say that. I have mixed feelings about this movie. We haven't got to talk about this movie at all off air, so
No, we
this will
haven't.
be interesting to see our raw reactions because let's talk about expectations going in first because that I think sets the stage for this. My expectations were not great up until the trailers, and then I was like, okay, these trailers actually look pretty decent.
So compared to the trailers, like my expectations were pretty low. I mean, I was hoping it would be at a bare minimum okay, right? That's just kind of where I was like, if it's an okay movie and I have fun with it, that's all I'm really interested in. I don't think it's going to be good or great. I can tell you that. Like initially, I just never felt that way about this movie. I'm like, casting's great. The addition of Jenna Ortega and Justin Theroux. I think that's a French name.
Justin Theroux.
Thoreau, yeah.
What did you say, Theroux?
Yeah, I had to butcher a name, so
You're frozen, by the way, on my end. I don't know if your camera anyway. Come here,
Can you
Yosh.
hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you fine.
Interesting.
Yoshi's here tonight, everyone. Say hello.
Yoshi.
Interesting. Are you seeing yourself frozen or?
Yeah, myself is frozen over here too.
That's funny.
Gotta
Well,
figure out what
regardless,
it's all about.
So going into this, after I saw the trailers, I was a little more hopeful, and I was kind of like not knowing what quite to expect, really. Because I haven't really liked anything Tim Burton's done in the last 20 years, and that might be a bold statement for some, but honestly, 25 years actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, just haven't cared for anything since Sleepy Hollow. Everything from Pee-wee to Sleepy Hollow was a banger, though.
Yeah, he had a damn solid run early on, and then sorry, I'm on my other built-in webcam now to see what's going on with it. That's the second time that's happened to us when we've been streaming. But yeah, I went in with pretty low expectations, just thinking like, it's going to be okay. The trailers led me down a different path than I would have expected in the actual movie. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just different than what I expected.
Mm-hmm.
I will say the thing that I was most pleasantly surprised about in this movie was I didn't really know what to expect, right? The trailers didn't ruin this movie for me. There's a lot in this movie that didn't show up in the trailer, so I was able to just enjoy it. So, and it was one of those, since we're not a Beetlejuice show primarily, like we're Ghostbusters fanatics, we enjoy Beetlejuice, but we just don't have the knowledge of it, the ins and outs of it, the hype level for it.
Speaking of, we're going to have to talk about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire later in this discussion, but we'll get there. It's relevant to this movie.
Yes, it is.
Let's talk about things we liked about this movie. Let's start there.
Things I liked, the underground, the death world, looked incredible. It was just beautifully done. The visuals in this thing were just on point. So,
all right. Also, going forward, anyone, spoilers. I'm going to throw up a spoiler banner here. Good
call. Yeah. So visually, this movie was amazing. Michael Keaton was truly epic in this. Screen time was still managed pretty well, all things considered.
Yeah.
I'd seen interviews where they talked about that. So it wasn't stuff like to worry about. It was like, hey, here's where we're at. So, Jenna Ortega did great. Winona Ryder was great. Catherine O'Hara was great. Some
Yeah.
of the supporting cast was different. I loved the visuals, like all the costume design, all the characters. Fuck, man, Danny DeVito's little cameo in there was fucking hilarious. Like, it was
Danny
beautiful.
DeVito's part was surprising and great.
I know. That was one thing that I felt like would have been so hard to do for other things, like not spoil that. And then the other thing they didn't spoil was the kid being the ghost up in the treehouse, right? That wasn't spoiled in the trailers that I'd seen.
Yeah. Which I just wish they had gotten to that plot a little bit earlier, because that was kind of the main plot. So I just wish we had more time with it, because it developed really quickly.
Well, my two things with the story that didn't work very well for this was the ghost kid story and then the Beetlejuice's ex-wife. Like, to me, like that layover and crossover they had there, it felt like there was...
The ghost kid story should have been the main plot.
Yes, I don't even know why Beetlejuice's wife was in there, aside from her getting eaten at the end. It just wasted a bunch of time at the beginning of the film.
For sure. I did like the scene when she was put together and the Bee Gees are playing.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about that, why is the underworld all of a sudden obsessed with disco? Why is this movie obsessed with disco music? And
Yeah, good question. I have no idea. One thing that threw me off on this movie, though, too, was it was so drastically different, not just with the music choices, but the overall tone, right? There were some member berries and all that kind of stuff, but I think it was the writing team, right? It was a completely different writing team, and so they just wrote a movie, and like maybe they really like disco or something.
right, Beetlejuice did a lot of lip syncing, which was interesting. Maybe once would have been good, but I think they did it twice, and I was like a little, eh.
They did that twice, and then they had the other musical number too, so it was like...
The
That
part
was
about his history, I could have done without.
That was really cool, but that was completely pointless to the outcome of the film, because the ex-wife or supposed wife was trying to be this villain, but it was competing with the kid being the villain. I felt like they wrapped up his stuff too soon to finish her stuff.
Well, that's what I think they could have just left out Monica Bellucci and Willem Dafoe. As much as their characters were aesthetically some of the best looking and most interesting ideas for characters, they still didn't do much. What's interesting, besides the obvious comparison to Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, but I have seen other people realize this too, but there's a lot this has in common with the Beetlejuice cartoon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very much up that alley. Whoever wrote this probably watched the movie and the cartoon and was influenced by that. And you're going to see, I think we're at a point where, especially for franchises, people are a lot more comfortable with that, letting it an animated series or a show in universe with the thing, but maybe not direct canon since it's not a movie sequel, like have that influence on there. And that's a really good thing, right? They've seen Star Wars do that pretty heavily now with some of the live action shows. So I think they're at a point where it's like, hey, that actually works pretty well. So,
yeah. So what did you think? So Charles is obviously dead. That's the thing, right? But they kept the character and he's walking around as a corpse, and they did a whole animated sequence kind of using his likeness.
to me, that pissed me off. Using his likeness there, like, I don't know why they had to animate that.
I am not okay, so I'm not alone with that.
No, that sequence ruined that for me, and the fact that they had his likeness in there makes me wonder, did he get paid for this?
Right. This is
I
what I
think
was doing watching that.
it feels like he got paid for this without being in it, and they're like, oh, well, and that's the thing with Beetlejuice, you're dealing with the dead, so you would have expected him, like, okay, we kill this character off, but now you got to deal with his dead character because you're dealing with the afterlife.
Right.
And
Which
to me, I hadn't even thought about that last week when I was talking about my reservations about this movie and him being in it. I just knew that he was going to be in this movie. Whether or not it was actually him, was that character, I didn't think there was a way to tell this story without having some reference of it. Obviously, which you're going to get the comparisons to Ghostbusters Afterlife, because you're dealing with a character. One case has been canceled, one case is deceased. And so, how do you fit that into the story? Because there's no way around it. Obviously, I think Afterlife did it a lot better than this. I think that whole animated sequence could have been left out. I did love the fact that when he was dead, like he was beheaded down in that plane crash. So, like, they had a reason not to show his face. Perfect.
Well, it was a shark attack. He died in shark
Yeah.
attack in the water afterwards.
Yeah.
It's his headstone shaped like a shark's fin.
Yeah. Or a shark mouth. So, to me, that worked great.
Deepest, bluest, my hat is like a shark's fin.
I mean, they didn't go down the Back to the Future route where there's like, yeah, we're going to get somebody that looks similar to you to be like here for these
Well, that's
sequences,
that's the
which
thing.
I was worried about.
It kind of reminded me of that Back to the Future case because it feels like by using claymation or whatever, they're trying to avoid that, perhaps. I don't know if they actually did or not, but by portraying just his likeness, I was a little like, come on. We could
I'm
do it without
assuming
this.
I'm assuming he got a paycheck for this. I don't think there's any way around it. They didn't put him in the movie, but I'm assuming he got paid for that. Because claymation or not, everyone damn well knew who it was supposed to be.
Yeah,
And that's a case you could make in court very easily and win. So
for sure.
I don't think they would go down that route without it, but I think he got paid for his likeness there. Since his head was cut off, I wish he didn't have any dialogue at all. I mean, they didn't try to like impersonate his voice.
It was
Which-
gurgly and distorted enough that it worked
Yeah.
because some of that was really funny.
Yeah.
So honestly, I could, with the body like that, with not portraying his head and stuff, I'm honestly fine with that
Yeah.
because you're
No,
not portraying his likeness because that gets muddy and yeah.
Yeah. So I like the use of him in the picture, but the animated sequence and that little story blurb was dumb. They, like, I don't need this whole background story that he's out bird watching. Just tell me he died in a plane crash. Okay, whatever.
Well, it was funny to include the bird watching thing, I think,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
then he's in the bird watching outfit after he's dead, but he got killed by a shark, which is like what?
Yeah.
I think some of that's wacky and goofy enough that it works. Let's talk about Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice. So, for the most part, I think he did great, and they did not overuse him. Obviously, they used him a little bit more than last time, but not to the point where it's like, too much.
Yeah.
And he's a lot less. People are saying he just was stepped right back into the role. Well, he's a lot less animated.
Mm-hmm.
His voice is naturally older, so he's a little harder to understand.
Yeah.
Those are things I noticed. I still loved him as Beetlejuice back, though. I was like, well,
Yes. What I would say is his character was written in a way that it was a blend of Beetlejuice from the movie and the cartoon. The way he spoke and acted. And I think Michael Keaton got that because he didn't seem as, to your point, you used the term animated, but I was going to say he didn't seem as over the top or quite as obnoxious.
right. He wasn't like talking really, really fast. It was like taken down just a notch or two, like in terms of how crazy he was. He was still there,
Yeah.
but
And he was able to almost be the anti-hero in this, right? You know, in the first one, he's clearly the villain, the bad guy here.
well, I think
And this one, he's kind of like on the edge there, right?
he's more on the edge in this one, but they use him in the same way. Like they have to have him come in and defend against something. This time it's something
Yeah.
supernatural, which is interesting, which I liked. Like that's a great. Again, I think they should have leaned into that story more and ignored the Monica Bellucci and Willem Dafoe of it all. Even though, again, interesting characters, love their makeup and appearance, and
Yeah.
great actors, but I think that
Well-
plot could have just been fucked off with.
Yeah. And that at the end of the movie, it just feels incomplete to me. I feel like there's probably 30 minutes to 45 more minutes they would have needed to flesh that character out. Because when she came back as the main villain at the end, I didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Because her opening sequence was really cool. Everything else after that was just kind of like, not to say the performance was bad, the story just wasn't there, right? The writing.
Exactly. Well, that's how I honestly feel about Jenna Ortega's character too. She was a little annoying, and it's not her performance. She did great, but the character was a little lacking to me, if I'm being honest.
Underdeveloped, it felt like. And it just felt like we didn't get enough screen time beforehand. Because, right, when we see the original Beetlejuice, we see Lydia just having, you just understand her as a person when her character, because goth was like an aesthetic back then, and like it was kind of understood, but Jenna Ortega like falls into that goth category. Kind of her character in this movie is just kind of on the edge by proximity to her mom, but her mom's a real goth in this, so it felt like they underused her to some degree.
I did
With
like
that.
her TV show.
Yeah, that was a dope idea. I really liked that. How
I
she
was
was
reminded
actually
of World of Psychic.
absolutely. And then we got to learn that she was married, husband died, she can't see him, can't talk to him.
I started to wonder if he was still alive. Would be, while
Oh
I was
yeah.
watching.
Yeah, that was a good use of him too in there, right? Like just randomly seeing him in the afterlife and kind of saying like, I can't talk to you. They didn't explain that. Like I would have liked to know why he couldn't see her, but I really don't care either. Like it wasn't significant enough to change the story too much for me.
Well, it seemed like he had moved on because he was working there, so he wasn't. He was already past that stuff somehow. It seemed they didn't explain why or how, but it seemed like he had a job on the other side, so he's no way he's haunting wherever he died, which is interesting because he should be. If he died in like the random ocean or something, shouldn't he be? Does he have to haunt like the ocean for you know what I mean, like or the river, the
125
Nile,
years,
wherever
I
he
think
was?
they say. Yeah. Now that was fascinating there. And then the fact that they, write off
Oh
the
yes,
Maitlands, just like we thought, right? Just a one line of dialogue and it just sends the whole picture. Oh, they found a loophole.
yeah. Oh, thank
Really?
God we invented
That
the
simple? Thank
whatever.
God we invented the loophole.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which I don't really care what happened to them. It would have been interesting for them to set, because they established that 125-year rule, which I think is fascinating in its own right for other areas or other properties.
Yeah.
Like not necessarily in this movie, but it could be within the realm, and that would be fascinating. But
So the shrunken head thing. What'd you think of this Bob character and how they used that? So I've seen a lot of people loving it, and in the audience there was a woman in the same row as us who kept going like, "Oh, oh, oh," at everything
it
Bob.
was really distracting for me. And the fact that once there's multiple Bobs in there, it just looks like a room full of Goombas from the Super Mario Brothers movie.
I was thinking the same thing.
And that just threw me off the entire time because unless I was looking at Bob himself and I was just looking at one of the other Bobs, or they all had different names, I think, because they're all listed out at some point. But the background ones just felt like Goombas. And I was like, this is a weird mix up, man, with the Mario movie. But okay, I'm like, I'm into it. Like, I don't hate it, but it just, I don't know. It was interesting.
Yeah, no, that's spot on for sure. Let's see.
What'd you think of Delia?
I honestly thought she was great. She could have been. She was really funny. She missed a little bit of her assholishness that she has in the first movie, but she kept her like bluntness and bitterness and shit like that. So she wasn't just like over the top of like in the first one when she's screaming often or taking Valium and shit.
Yeah, which is, I think it was a natural progression for that character.
No, it's great. I loved her art exhibition shit and how she died with
Yeah.
getting bit by the snakes. That was
They're
all
supposed to
honestly
be
funny.
defanged. Yeah, that was hilarious. Like where she gets him out and is doing this whole ceremony, and yeah, that was great. And then they reunite. So, because at first when she died, I was like, why the fuck did they kill her?
Right.
Like permanently. I'm like, that seems kind of dumb, but maybe that was a stipulation she had in there. Maybe that was her Bill Murray clause. You got to kill me off in the movie.
And
I don't know.
Let's see what else. What are the characters?
Well, we had William Dafoe as Wolf Jackson, which I liked his character a lot.
You say William Dafoe?
Yeah, Willem Dafoe is what I. No, I'm pretty sure I said Willem Dafoe. You heard William.
Chat.
William
Did he say
Dafoe?
Did he say Willem or William?
I don't fucking know. Does it
First
matter?
It mattered because Justin earlier said Justin Thurdo or Thurdox or whatever you said.
Now you're just making shit up worse than I did.
It was hard to remember because it was bad.
Wolf
Justin
Jackson.
Thoreau. Okay, yeah. Talk about Wolf Jackson.
Awesome character. Underutilized.
Yeah, again, could have just been written out of the movie, to be honest, but sure.
What I ultimately wish would have happened, and not a lot of people say this when they see a sequel or something like that. This would have been a great TV series season, right? 6 episodes, miniseries, something like that. Or Beetlejuice 2 and 3. Because I feel like those characters didn't get the plot they deserved in this movie, right? Like he just felt so shoehorned into it. Like they
Yeah.
didn't get enough time. And like that character alone is fascinating. Like I thought he's going to be going after Beetlejuice for crimes and investigating him, which yeah, kind of happens, but early on when he's interrogating him and stuff, it was interesting.
Yeah, there were some moments there. So Justin Theroux's character, I thought was pretty interesting. A little weird, obviously, on purpose.
Yeah.
Just an interesting contrast to some of the other characters, I guess. I don't know. I really like Justin Theroux, but this character is kind of made to be annoying and to hate. So, what are you gonna do?
That is the thing. Is like great actor. Fucking despise his character in this movie because he's just such this fucking nitwit, selfish prick that's like taking advantage of people. And
I see him.
He excels at that role, and it's so good too because like there's parts of you that what you want to like him because you're like, okay, he's decent enough here, and then you realize like, okay, and I love when Beetlejuice like gives him the truth serum, and he just like on a spiel, and it's like, oh man, that was such a great contrast to how his character had acted the rest of the movie. Really showed off his acting chops in that moment.
Yeah. I always think of him in Mulholland Drive and how his wife cheated on him with Billy Ray Cyrus. And also in American Psycho.
Yeah.
Solid in that. And he wrote Iron Man 2, I think.
Oh, shit. Yeah, you're right.
He's done some good shit. He's an interesting person.
Yeah, fascinating to see him in that role. And then that character is just such a jerk. It was pretty good. I liked him.
So what about this ending?
Oh, it was so messy. It was so messy.
I like reassessed the situation and said, what the fuck in my brain like 3 times during that ending.
Did you get Christmas Vacation vibes? When they break into the chapel, it just felt like they're breaking into Clark's house at the end of the fucking movie. We're like, what the fuck is going on here? This shit's just so stupid.
Not at all, but that's hilarious.
That's where my mind went in the theater. I was like, I'm watching them spoof Christmas Vacation.
I didn't
What
even
the
mean
hell are
that
they
ending.
doing?
I meant like where all of a sudden it's fucking Dracula's castle. This castle. And then she sees a dude there. And then it's fast forward again. Having a baby. And then you paused again. Okay, back.
Oh, that weird fucking like dream sequence or mushroom sequence, whatever you want to call it.
And then baby Beetlejuice from the cartoon, basically.
Yeah, and the baby Beetlejuice coming back for its second sequence in there, right?
Yeah.
So
that was super.
I don't
know.
I think it should have just ended when it ended. I don't think I needed all that. But it almost felt like we're in such a culture of like post-credit scenes or mid-credit scenes that they just fucking shoehorn that at the end of the movie instead of doing that.
Yeah, I don't know. I still don't know how to feel entirely about that ending.
I wish they wouldn't have done it, right? I mean, it would have been fine to have her like dreaming about the baby Beetlejuice, but like they have this long sequence. You're like, are you really trying to jump ahead in the story? That didn't feel right at all. Like, and you didn't realize it was a dream sequence until she wakes up fucking terrified.
Yeah. I don't know.
What would you grade this out of 10?
Out of 10. 6.5 or a 7. Probably a 7. It's a little generous, but it's a fun watch. It's just not perfect. I'm going to leave it there because if I think about this too much, I'm going to lower the score.
So this to me, after one viewing, and I've only seen this once, right? Sometimes I've seen movies more than once before to review them, just depending on what's going on. Or you want to come back and update your thoughts after a second viewing. But first viewing, I thought this was, man, and I was just thinking right with you. I was like, is it a 6.5 or is it a 7? Because there's more good than bad, which is, like a D grade is still a passing grade. That doesn't mean it's perfect, but it's still
A 7
has
is a
enough.
C and a 65 is a D.
Yeah.
I gave it a C. C minus.
Yeah, I mean, if you're right at 70, I could see that, but I would say 65 for me, or 6.5 on first viewing. Just there's enough things in there that were off-putting, and that I felt like they could have done better with the story overall. But there's enough good things about it. I will rewatch it.
Can see that.
Now I don't know
Oh.
how often yet, right? Until I watch this at home and like really. That's one thing I've really noticed this summer for me is that anytime I watch a movie, the first time there's just so much anxiety about what the hell is going to happen during the story that I'm
Especially
not,
these legacy sequels.
yeah, that I'm not even able to like really fucking relax and enjoy it. I'm just so stressed getting through the movie about like, hey, what the hell's going to happen? And then once you do that, the second time you can go in and watch it and see it for what it truly is. And so I feel like this movie is going to change a lot. Will it go up a lot? I don't quite know, but I'll be able to be relaxed and get through the story and really take it in for what it should be. Like, I almost wonder if other reviewers, right? Is there any psychology or science behind that? Like, second viewing should be really where you start to form a true opinion because you have a spot in your head where you're already at with it, right? You get rid of that first viewing that you're just trying to get through the story and understand it all. Second time's when you can start to enjoy it if it's a good film.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the case with more complex movies, I feel like, for sure. Like some
You froze on me, son. Well, I think Alec is frozen, at least on my end, so we're waiting for him to get reconnected there. It's the dangers of a live show, kids. Sometimes shit goes wrong. So Alec had to jump out, and he's coming back.
computer just fucking restarted. Like
Oh,
the
okay.
screen went. I don't know what the hell happened.
I was just telling the audience if they're still there. I was just like, "Hey, Alec just completely just disappeared. He's frozen."
I'm back though. It started right back up, so lucky for me.
All right. So what were you saying when you cut off there?
I have no idea.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, we're talking about the psychology of seeing a movie the second time, and you said some movies you can really enjoy the first time, which yeah, I 100% agree with that. But complex stories.
Yeah, well, I was saying, specific like David Lynch movies, for example. Watching one for the first time, sometimes you're just like, "What the fuck did I watch?" That might have been interesting or cool, but I need to watch that more to understand what I'm really seeing here. But when that happens for a movie like Beetlejuice, it's because of expectations and stuff. There's different reasons, I think, too, that you would need time to process movies. So
Yeah, I mean, there's comedy movies you can love the very first time without needing any additional context, but something like this where there's a lot of plot lines going on for these characters, you really need to break them down and see what actually worked best versus just trying to get through the movie and understand it. So,
Yeah.
all right. So you said you want to talk about this and Frozen Empire, just the vibes of the cartoon influencing the film.
Well, that was one thing, but also the fact that the characters, there's a whole plot of characters falling in love with a ghost,
Oh,
which is downplayed a little bit in Frozen Empire's final release,
yeah.
but is vital to the story. A main character who's a descendant of a main character from previous film
Mm-hmm.
is falling in love with a ghost.
Grandchild of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In both cases, they're grandchild of a main character, so that checks out. I found that interesting. I immediately was thinking of Frozen Empire in there, and Phoebe and I can't even remember that ghost name.
Melody.
Melody, that's it.
Yep. Yeah, so I enjoyed that. But the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire connection, I think there's just that cartoon element there where you're like, okay, we're doing a live action movie, but we're going to allow this other influence to come in there, or we're going to take that influence on purpose and write it. Because, that wasn't something that's always happened, right? Lots of times the animated series have just been ignored by movies. They're their own canon lots of times. And I think, to grow that, it's an interesting way for a legacy sequel or a franchise where you're adding some of those elements because, yeah, you could go straight and just follow the movie, or yeah, you could go lean heavily into the cartoon and ignore the movie for some of these things. But adding them together there, like I said, feels like Star Wars with some relevancy as far as the way they've done that. Like they've allowed those shows to become direct sequels and canon and setting them up properly for that. So
Yeah.
I just think we're comfortable with the idea of crossing those two things over. And so far, the results have been good. I wouldn't say they've been amazing, but they've been good, fun, rewatchable. Sometimes that's all you can ask for in a movie, right?
Yeah.
What
I'm not-
are you planning on seeing this again in theaters, or are you gonna wait and watch it at home?
I'll probably wait. I'll pick up a physical release probably with a digital code.
I'm hoping they'll have a nice Beetlejuice and Beetlejuice 4K steelbook, so I can get that because I don't have Beetlejuice on 4K. I've got it on Blu-ray, but I haven't upgraded yet. So
Yeah, I have the Blu-ray. I think I have the DVD and VHS as well.
I mean, as much as when that movie ends, you're like, okay, there's a lot more potential to do more stories in this world, but I just don't think Michael Keaton has a desire to do that a whole lot, right? I don't think there's a lot of point for that Beetlejuice character. Now, there's other fascinating characters in there that you would like to know more about, but I don't think we're going to see another Beetlejuice movie.
Yeah. I think it's doing good at the box office. I haven't really paid that much attention.
It's Tim Burton's biggest opening weekend. It was one of the biggest Labor Day or post Labor Day September weekend openings. So
Depends if they throw a bunch of money at him, but yeah, I don't see Michael Keaton being the holdup for sure. There'd be no reason to continue in this universe without it being Beetlejuice, to be perfectly honest. You could just do a new original story.
yeah. And if you later on want to tell us that happens to fall in the Beetlejuice universe or you were influenced by that, so be it, right? It doesn't all have to be that.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't have to be labeled to that, but could visually tie it to it. Just put 2 and 2 together on your own. Do you think this tarnishes the legacy of the original?
No, I don't think sequels do that for the most part.
Well, neither do I, but there's always some motherfucker out there saying it, and I don't think we've ever had a discussion about that. Like, if you don't like it, just don't watch it. The original is always going to be the original.
Yeah. There's a lot of movies where I do that with. I only watch the first one or the first whatever, the good ones.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the Terminator franchise comes to mind, right? That's a franchise where I only watch the ones I like.
I only watched the first 3, and after that, like once in a while, I'll watch the 4th one.
Salvation to me is once every 3 or 4 years at this point. Like, it's good.
Have you seen the new Terminator series yet? It's on Netflix.
Oh, that's already out?
Terminator Zero. I just saw it's out.
Okay,
Been
I've not
interested in
watched that. I will watch that, and we'll talk about it soon.
It's an anime series.
Yeah.
Looks pretty mildly interesting. I'll at least give it a shot, watch an episode or 2, and see how I feel about it. Saw the trailer for the Lord of the Rings anime movie as well, so
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, this winter, I think that's going to be something we'll do this winter is I'll finally watch the Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah, it's a good. I'm going to do that in late November, so that'd be a good time for you to do it as well.
Yeah,
But
we
I
should
recommend
schedule
you
that.
just watching the regular versions first, not the extended editions.
Yeah, just get the basic stuff, and then
The
if I
extended
like it,
editions
I'll...
add like at least a whole nother movie or two's worth of material in it. Like, it's crazy.
That's wild.
The first one's like another hour long and shit. Like,
An entire hour longer? Damn.
damn near, dude. It's crazy. Like, they're actually super extended. I've also got to watch the animated movies, but you don't need to. You join me for that. Just watch the Lord of the Rings ones. You don't even need to watch the Hobbit movies. They're not worth it.
Yeah, I heard some people really like them just because they're so into that universe, and some people are like, it doesn't really bring anything new. So, wasn't that exciting? It's like the Ewoks movies. Yeah, just because you love Return of the Jedi doesn't mean you're going to like the Ewoks movies.
Well, what bothers me about it is Lord of the Rings are each one book. They each got one movie. The Hobbit is one book, and it's like half the length of one of the other books. And it's got 3 movies. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, stop. I just wanted to split it into a bunch. It's got to be a new trilogy.
Like, no, that could have been a one-off standalone movie.
It should have just been a prequel movie to the others. I mean, it still technically is, but like, it's a prequel series now. And come on, fuck off.
Yeah, that seemed
I
like a total
digress.
scam there. But that's why, I never seen those. There's nothing against them. It was just something I never got around to. And then by the time you'd missed all 3 of them, and then there's these extended cuts, you're like, where do you start? And so then I just like, I don't start anywhere. I'll just leave that on the list of shit I haven't seen.
I don't know how you'll feel about it. Do you have any interest in medieval type shit?
Yes. I mean, I've enjoyed, some of the Robin Hood movies that have a similar time frame as far as aesthetic goes. And then I really like Game of Thrones, the original series. I watched that after I got the first half. The first season's real fucking rough, but after you get through that, then it's picks up and it's pretty good.
So it's a lot like Game of Thrones, but with a lot less incest.
All right. Well, that should be easy to watch then.
Yeah. I think most people think it's better than Game of Thrones, but I don't know. I haven't watched a lot of Game of Thrones because it's less my vibe than Lord of the Rings. I think Lord of the Rings is better, but yeah, we'll have to get into that because some good shit there.
Yeah. So next week, assuming we can find it playing at AMC, we're going to cover the 4:30 movie. If not, we may have something else up our sleeves. So join us next Monday, and we'll let you know what the hell we're going to cover.
Yep.
But I think we pretty much said everything there is to say about Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. It was pretty decent. I'd watch it again.
Yeah.
It's not as good as the original, but it's a fun movie. There's lots of really cool shit in there. If you like Halloween and all that stuff, like the lighting and the set photography and everything on there was just fucking... There's some.
Oh, damn. Either way, good night, everybody.
See you later.